Let me share. I'll share. Okay. All right, folks on Zoom, I'm sharing my screen. Hopefully you can see the song. Perfect. Okay, so you need to all be muted, and because if you're going to sing along, then definitely mute, please. Trying not to be offensive. All right, where's Sue? Sue, do you want to do any introduction things or anything? Are you fine? Come on up here. You're the minister. You probably won't need this if you're standing next to the Yeti. Hi. Unless you're not carrying in the room.
Oh, I think I'll carry.
Your voice is clear.
All right, I'm Sue Oakland. I'm the minister of St. Michael Fraternity that meets here. Been a secular Franciscan for 47 years. And so we have a lot of members here from our fraternity, and ones from other fraternities also came to join us. We have some people from Batesville also came down, in Hillsborough, all interested in this message. So I don't know, do we want to do introductions all the way around or not?
No.
Okay. Probably take an hour.
It would. It'd be wonderful. Let's promise we'll have a picnic or something sometime that's just social.
Maybe an all Franciscan day might be coming up.
Hey, it might be there. August 6th. I hope you're all coming. It's gonna be St. Vivian's Parish Center. Just come. Yeah, just warn them if you're gonna really bombard them, because they're getting donuts and coffee. So you have to bring your own lunch. Okay, just saying. Okay, so I'm Glow Story. I'm the vice minister of our fraternity, and I welcome all of you. I'm just so excited to see all these faces. Some of them I remember from the Beacons of Light meeting, and some of them I remember from all fraternities that I've been aware of. So tonight I planned a little bit of a prayer opening. I didn't want to take too long, but we're learning this song, so please bear with us as we sing this. This is for our retreat that we're having at the end of July. And if you don't know anything about the retreat and want to know about the retreat, talk to me later. But this is going to be our theme song for our retreat, because our retreat theme is transformation. And I thought it was good for this meeting tonight too. And then I have a small prayer that I stole from the Archbishop's website, which I reworded just slightly to be a little more Franciscan for us. So, so we'll start with Transfigure Us. What are you gonna do again? Valley bars. Transfigure us, O transfigure us, O Lord. Break the chains that bind us. Speak your healing word, and where you lead will follow. Transfigure us, O Lord. Down from heights of glory into the depths below. The love of God self-empty, the love of ties that bind us, keep your healing word, and where you lead we'll follow, transfigure us, O Lord. Page down. Let's just do it this way. There we go. Okay. Perfect. Okay. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Everybody just read along. Almighty and eternal God, in your unfailing love, you provide ministers for your church. We pray for those whom you call to serve the church as priests, brothers, court players, and seculars of the Franciscan order. Inspire in them each response. Grant them courage and vision to serve your people. May their lives and service call your people to respond to the presence of the Spirit among us, and faithful to the gospel and hope of Jesus Christ. Announced to the poor, proclaim liberty to captives, set prisoners free, and renew the face of the earth. Amen. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing. Maximize this, and I'm going to change the video to the integrated webcam. And then Father's going to take my smart, and we'll go from there. Well, that's Sue's job. Why don't you introduce yourself, Father?
Yeah.
Every time I go to a new church, I always try to test out the audio to find out where the echoes are and the dead spots and so on. So that's what I'm doing right now. If you can hear me, raise your hand. Okay, good. It doesn't work to say, if you can't hear me, raise your hand. You don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear me, raise your hand. Well, first of all, I'm really happy to be here. Actually, this is a larger crowd than I thought we would have. And as I look around, I realize that many of your lives have intersected with mine in different ministries. And I thought I'd just do a quick run through of what I've been sent into and where I have been driven away from in the course of my time as a friar. I was born in Wisconsin, of all places, and I should be in another province, except that our family moved twice, first to eastern Iowa and then to northern Indiana. While I was a grade schooler in South Bend, Indiana, the Cincinnati vocation director happened to be at our grade school. He asked if anyone would like to be put on a list to get things in the mail. So I raised my hand and I started every month. I got something in the mail. And by the time I was ready to start high school, I was enrolled at the minor seminary on Mill Road in Cincinnati here. And that started in 1964. And so I was what you call the classic model. You went to high school, you went to college, you went to theology, all under the Franciscan umbrella. And so that was, and I was one of the last of the classic models. And after that, the way we did formation training changed very much, especially as our numbers went down. I started my ministry career in Southfield, Michigan, near our college seminary, a parish, large parish at the time, in 1977. Soon I was in a graduate program for English literature, and the plan was that I was teach at Duns Scotus College, just a couple miles away. But by the time I got the degree, the first of these changes in our training program took effect and they closed the college. However, they kept me around and I became a formation director. And that went on for 9 years, I'm sorry. 3 in Detroit, 6 in Chicago. Following that, I was had a little break from all that kind of ministry, and then I was associate pastor in the Corpus Christi parish and here in Cincinnati. And then my first pastorate was with Ron and Marilyn in Batesville, Indiana. And so I was there for 8 years. Then spent 12 years down the street at Roger Bacon. So, as you can see, there are a lot of points of intersection with many of you. And then I was finished that 12 years and went up to Detroit, back to my original parish. And I was a young priest. I was pastor for 4 years. And then about 5.5 years ago, I was elected to be vicar provincial. And that brings me to the present moment, at a point where my job ends in October. And then the future, I don't know. And that's, I guess, part of what you'll hear that refrain, I don't know, quite often in my little presentation here. What I was asked to do, I hope if I heard it right, to give some background, history, future of the major project of bringing 6 Franciscan provinces into one. And I'm going to try to do that, giving a little history toward that and the most recent times in terms of how things are coming to have a shape, not complete yet, but coming soon to be able to say this is the new province. This work began actually a number of years ago when the friars in St. Louis and in Wisconsin, we decided that we were looking at our numbers and we all felt the same alarm and the realization that already we were having trouble finding men to fill key roles in our work and in our life. So pastors, principals, heads of programs, guardians of our fraternities, and so on, were getting harder to find. How else did I get this job? I mean, you can find something at the bottom of the barrel. But so this was going on, and we 3 provinces entered into dialogues, and I can't remember the exact year, but it was a good amount of time ago. Eventually, the St. Louis Franciscans decided they were not ready for this, and it was just us and the Assumption province in Wisconsin. And we almost reached the point of becoming one province. However, the sentiment of at least our province was not, we weren't quite ready. They were not at the point to insist that we become one. And then the realization that we might go through all the effort of merging together and then find out we have to do it all over again by inviting in the other 4 provinces, or there were actually 5 other provinces at the time. And so there was a sense that we'll put a pause on this and wait until everybody realized how important it would be to do this work. And there was another big meeting of all the 7 provinces and their councils. So that's 7 times 7 or 8, there were a lot of over 50 people. And we had a big powwow, and it was decided to hire a consultant and then move forward from there. Along the way, one of the provinces dropped out definitively, so we became, instead of 7, 6. And as time went on, we began to discern, and we were all assigned to organize our chapter, which is our gathering to make decisions and elect and so on, we would all have a chapter one day, same time across the time zones from New York to California, and take a vote. Are we in or are we out? And that chapter for us was held at Roger Bacon, just down the street. And so it was basically, we did our presentations, we made our tally, we voted for it with a pretty high favorability, about 90%, I believe, as I recall. And this is before Zoom, but we had the other provinces on video conferencing, and one by one, they also voted that this was the way to go. So that was really a turning point in this whole process. And I am trying to remember the year that happened. It was probably 2017, possibly. I'm trying to figure out where I was working at the time. I think I was on, it might have been 2014. But anyway, that regardless, it came and went, and we were left with a decision to do this. Now, here is where the history becomes quite complicated, because nobody believed that we would be able to do this merger all by ourselves. And so we researched, and committees were set up, consultants were hired, and a rather painstaking phase of this groundwork, joining of 6 historical provinces, each with their own culture, ethnic background, unique history, and geographical location. And one of the first exercises we had took place in near St. Louis. And it was the provincial councils were together, and one of the exercises, I just came across this picture that I took of my camera of the scribble sheet. We were to name our pluses and minuses as a province, our provincial council. And then everybody else could go and comment and add their ideas about each other's pluses and minuses. And they were all on the same piece of newsprint. So if I could bring it up on here, I'd share it with you, but some characteristics that we readily accepted: that we were thrifty, we were organized, we did forward planning, and that's what we thought as positives. And others would say that's a negative. You're uptight, you're stingy with the money, or whatever it is, so you know how it is, you can make a word sound one way or the other. But that was an eye-opener to see not only the opportunity for each province to show themselves, but for each other province to react to that and share their outside perceptions. The takeaway was, this is going to be really hard. How we work with money, how we live life in our local communities. What kind of cars do we drive? How much expectations are there around spirituality and things like that? So there's a core sameness, let's face it. I mean, we are Franciscans, but in terms of practice and lifestyle, and just, I guess I have to use the word culture, it was different. We if you had to generalize, we would say our provinces shares many parts of the Germanic culture, because you had to learn German when you joined us back in the early days. I took German in seminary high school, because it was felt it was part of your socialization into the province. Okay, so that's the background, and I'm going to kind of go into more the state of the process. Okay, does that sound like it's something you a good thing to do? Okay, first of all, some timelines. October, I think I mentioned that, the third week of October, we will gather as a chapter of Unity in Kansas City, Missouri. And there will be two dimensions to that gathering. The first part, everybody's invited. It's an assembly. And it will be the place where ceremonially we surrender our provincial seal, that little stamp thing that goes on all our official documents. Everyone, they'll come be brought together and either stored away forever, or maybe they destroy them, I don't know, but then the new seal will be there. There'll be a decree of suppression of the other six provinces, because they have to go out of existence before you can come into something else. And then the new province will, in some ceremonial way, be brought about. And if you know the name of it, don't you? Our Lady of Guadalupe. Which there's a story there too, because the original agreement was nobody can transfer their old name into the new one. And so we did big polls and surveys, and names were some really strange names. I have to say. My submission, which only occurred to me after the thing was closed, was St. Francis Seraph province, because the Seraph has how many wings? 6 wings. There were 6 provinces coming in. I think I might have carried the day if I were on the ball and, brought it forward in a timely way. But anyway, so after all that process, nobody was happy and went back to the drawing board. And it was felt that Our Lady of Guadalupe, as a unique devotion to the northern and southern hemispheres of the New World, would be most suitable. And we made the exception. Our Lady of Guadalupe in Albuquerque will be suppressed, but Our Lady of Guadalupe of the US 6 will be there, our future. But that's the first part of the gathering. The second part will be a chapter. The chapter, of course, in recent times, all the provinces had universal attendance. Previously, when all the provinces were larger, you had delegates who did your work. You had people who, if they were the guardian of the fraternity, got in automatically. If you were on the leadership, you were automatic, and if you were elected, usually by age groups, you were in. That went away as we got smaller and we could just all be there together. But it's coming back that there will be delegates who are being surfaced right now. And the guardians who have been sorted through, and then the administrations. So I get to go and be part of the second part, the chapter part. Try to imagine a large group of people, and I'm only guessing that it will be 100, 120, to begin the process of organizing themselves officially. You don't want to go there. You don't even want to try to imagine it. It would be total chaos. So the agenda is going to be very focused on a few things like approving the statutes of governance, how the next chapter 3 years from now will be conducted, whether it would be an attempt to make an all universal assembly or continue this delegation voting and such. So that will be those kind of businessy things will be mainly what this chapter will do. Now, those who came for the fireworks earlier, they're allowed to stay as an observer, but they won't have a voice. They won't be able to raise their hands or thumbs up, thumbs down. They'll be an observer there. So it's meant to be a fraternal thing, but also a business and official legislative kind of event for them. Now, let's go into kind of, at least where, as I put myself on the other side of that chapter, and now I gotta throw away all my business cards. I've got my email changed already because we're at least that far ahead that we now have instead of Franciscan.org, we have friars.us, and everybody will be invited to have an email with that. Right now, each province has their own email ending, whatever they call that. So there will be again the realization setting in that we just have to begin thinking differently about who we are. So one of the realities, and I think in two dimensions, size and distance are now multiplied hundreds of times. Maybe, well, not the size 100 times, but you know what I mean. It's going to be bigger. We have a directory with all our names and basic facts that we all have a copy of now. I can look up anybody's phone number, and in all 6 provinces, that there's about 700 plus total in our big family coming up. One of the implications are, I'm just going to give you a few of them. I mentioned already the chapters that have become family moments for the smaller provinces will become larger, highly organized things that will lose some of the warmth probably of what we've experienced. It was hard to tell a chapter apart from an assembly. We'd have 1 year a chapter, 1 year an assembly, and 1 year provincial retreats, because they go on a 3-year cycle. So there will be delegates, they will do the work, it will be a different feel for that part of our fraternal life. I began to think about, we just celebrated jubilees. Friars who were 25 years, 50 years, 60 years, et cetera, et cetera. Big, nice family gathering, easy for, even though we're kind of spread out, everybody can come together for these things. Next year's jubilees will involve a larger number, mostly strangers to us, and scattered all over the US. And how will we do that? Just kind of think of the logistics involved in getting so many people together, especially the older men who we can get their wheelchair over there pretty easy, but they can't fly probably, and it'll be a really tough thing. So jubilees, ordinations, that's, there'll be a national wide collection of men who solemn professions the same way. When that's our big celebration, actually, when we make our final vows. And that it'll have to be totally reorganized. Nobody's gotten any plans out there yet on how to do it, but we'll be thinking really hard and discussing it quite a bit. Funerals. A funeral is, like in any family, is a family event. When the funerals that start after October for our province, who's going to attend? Will the provincial, who may have 7 funerals a month all over the country, be expected to go from funeral to funeral and do all the presiding and expect to know the individual friar like he was a brother with him all their lives? We can do it now. And we all have our funeral plans on file downtown. And we have who we're going to celebrate, who's going to preach, what kind of music we want, readings, and so on. But how will that take place? It's anybody's guess. But it will mean, I believe, a sense of loss for our men and for the other provinces too. That smaller dimension of life will become much larger for that. Which means, I believe, at the beginning, these events will continue to have the momentum of the old legacy provinces. So the funerals will, you may have a provincial coming in, but everybody who gathers will be the ones who would have gathered last year. And the songs will be the same as last year, and the customs and the burial place and all that. But thinking ahead 5 years from now, 6, 7, then there's going to be an evolution of the practices here. And that evolution will begin when friars like myself and Father John and the other friars may be given an assignment outside our traditional assignments. All the ones I listed, it was pretty clear. I'd go to one or the other, but maybe my next one will be in California or New York or wherever. And as more and more friars leave behind in their actual life and their fraternal living what they were used to, then a new identity of our province will take place. It won't be overnight, but it will eventually happen. I think that's the only way it will happen. And by the way, our men in training, they've already been having that. When you start up, everybody joins together in near Washington, D.C., Silver Spring, Maryland, for our postulancy. So they come from all 6 provinces. They go to novitiate in Santa Barbara, California, Mission Santa Barbara, beautiful place, and in a very nice neighborhood. And then they finish up generally in Chicago at our School of Theology. So all these years, 5, 6 years, they're with men from other provinces. This came home to me when I was early on as vicar. I went to Silver Spring, Maryland for some meeting. And while I was there, we had two postulants there. And when we came down to eat, they were on one table and I was here. And I said, "What's wrong with this picture?" Well, eventually their director brought them over so we could sit together. But their consciousness, I was not a feature in it. I was just somebody from Cincinnati. They were used to dealing with their friars who were formation directors from this province or that province. And it was me who had to catch up and realize that already at the beginning levels, they are developing a different consciousness about being a friar. And they will have the least amount of difficulty in adjusting to this. It'll be like they've always known this. So you can see the contrast between us old timers and the ones just coming in. There will be mindsets totally different. So how am I doing that? Anyway, now I am really still okay. I'll get moving here. So I'm actually going through these points without even looking at my paper. Okay, that was the first thing, that the youngers will lead the way. And we had a special gathering, whether we meet the cutoff for being younger. Guess what age that is? 65. They had a gathering in Kansas City for the 65 and under. And Father John Stein turned 65 while he was there. And they voted him off the island. No, I don't think they did that. But that's kind of our situation. In our province, we have like 14 or 15 under 65. They're the ones who are carrying the ball. Luckily, I got a little energy left in me. I'm 73, so I think I can keep going for a while yet. Anyway, so going back now to the second point, organizationally, we have our headquarters is in Atlanta, not down Vine Street. You can just get on a bus even and go see the provincial if you have a problem. He's in Atlanta. I'm not just one of 100 some people that he has to get out of trouble every now and then. But there'll be 700. So you can imagine the immensity of, and maybe the distance, not only geographically, but emotionally, from your provincial, who is your guy to go to and listen to something that's, shared by a great number of more people. So what that, practically speaking, one of the ways they're handling this is that they are looking at how each friary is organized. Each friary has a guardian. I think you're familiar with that terminology. And the guardian has a list of responsibilities. And they're generally fairly modest. Make sure the budget's okay, housework's being done, repairs are taking place, new friars are welcomed properly, our guests are, all these kind of things. And the tone of the community is healthy and communicative and so on. Well, the guardian will, in a way, take on some of the provincial's authority and responsibility. He'll be more the connector to a much more distant headquarters, if you can see how that's going. Now, John was at a special meeting of, Father John was at the Guardians, that they were being introduced to this new model. I wasn't. There were two of those meetings, but from what I've heard, and you can talk to Father John after we're done, and he can give you the real story on that. But I think you could say that the expectations are higher.
In the overall model of what we're doing, the should say satisfying the vision is the key system. Our new arrangement for the guardians are going to be the key people.
So the guardian will take some of the functions of leadership that the provincial had to the more personal issues that provincials deal with. By the way, there's also another level. Each region, each of us that kind of roughly define each province, they will have a regional definitor or council member. And he will also, and that they will form a council of 7 friars. There'll be a wild card included, but they will be there to advise the provincial and bring the local information concerns to the bigger province. But so the guardians and the definitor will very likely have very important relationships going on. So that's one of the ways in which we're being asked to rethink our way of life. If you're become a guardian, you're just not going to walk in there and start doing it. You're going in for training, and you're going to have your own preparation so that you can be effective in the way they want it to be effective. There's going to be a renewal there's going to be an emphasis on renewal of Franciscan life. So that if friars think that they'll just kind of sail along and just have a different business card and a bigger directory, but everything else is the same. There's an expectation from the very beginning that we would be revitalizing our Franciscan life. And one of the duties of the Guardian is to see to that revitalization, that renewal. And they already have a vehicle for this to come together. And we've been doing it in our province, those who were willing enough to participate in it. Each community was to have a fraternal life plan, a written document which describes how you're going to, your commitment to prayer, renewal, fraternity, service, and so on. St. Clement fraternity, they're very faithful with that, and Father Frank, the Guardian, will be happy to share that with you. I'm at St. Anthony Friary on Coleraine. We have ours. We've been doing it for a while, and it helps. The community gets together and goes through these dimensions and works out a consensus about how this will be how we do things. You can always do it better, and do it more deeply, but that's basically one of the tools that we kind of field tested in a way, but all the houses in the fraternities will be expected to, rethink their life and build more depth to being a Franciscan. There's also in our revitalization a call to be open to a new ministry. And our ministries are now being shaped toward the concerns, life that is on the edge of society. We have, like, for instance, a call out to all the provinces. We have 3 ministries. Our parish in New Orleans, Upper Ninth Ward, our mission in Jamaica, and another province's mission in Greenwood, Mississippi, amongst the African American community. They're trying to get people to maybe reconsider taking on a more difficult, challenging ministry that may require a renewal within themselves to accept. So that's the kind of direction we're heading. It's still in its beginnings, and we hope it'll eventually enrich our life and lead to a new start for us. Now, one of the things I did to prepare for this, let me go back, and during our organizational work, there was a number of groups set up around different ministries and aspects of our Franciscan way of life. And they composed of volunteers. They were asked to present their thoughts and help us understand how we can do formation better, or parish ministry better, or mission work better, or cross-cultural work better. There is a group set up for these secular Franciscans. And one of the friars from the Wisconsin province is running it. So I contacted him and asked him, have you concluded your work yet? They haven't, but he was able to give me some ideas that are in their working toward. So there are 335 fraternities amongst the US 6. Now, some are probably smaller than others and so on, but that's a big number. There is a hope that one friar per fraternity would be available to serve each fraternity, especially if a spiritual assistant is unavailable. There's a concern to develop more resources across the board for fraternities. one spiritual assistant may, and again, this is all proposed, yeah. And then some of it may be actually implemented on how you kind of work out your interfraternity organization. One spiritual assistant with a network of regional spiritual assistants. And there's an assumption that most friars will remain in the geographical area that they are now. I addressed that earlier when I said, most of us will continue. It'll look pretty much the same for the next couple of years until assignments start going across provinces and so on. So it's really not a real clear plan yet, but the fact that a working group was created around your calling as secular Franciscans, I think is very hopeful. That there will be part of the renewal of first order life is a recommitment to the third order life as well. So anyway, that's, and I wish I remember I said at the beginning, I don't know. And this is a good example of that. I just don't know. So just some coming events, and then we'll have some time for questions. This next week, we're having two ceremonies of farewell to our province. On Friday, our friars, Port Clares, our provincial staff will gather for a mass at St. Anthony's Shrine. On Saturday, at Roger Bacon High School, Saturday morning, there will be a mass for those who we call our collaborators in ministries, or we have a number of sponsored ministries like Roger Bacon, like St. Francis Seraph Ministries, Franciscan Media, and so on. Member, staff, board members, and so on, within that larger group of collaboration will be part of that as well. So those are a couple things that are happening. In August, the new administration, the new provincial vicar and the 7 council definitors will be announced. You may be aware that there was no elections this first year. We've had a friar from Ireland, Father Praveen, who has made himself acquainted with, well, unbelievably, probably almost every one of the 700 plus friars. It is his job to advise our Rome leadership as to who those men will be. So that work is going on right now. And in early August, we'll all find out. And then they will begin meeting and getting to work, they'll have a ton of work to do. And then in August, in Atlanta, the new administration will meet with the legacy administrations in one rather large meeting. Kind of like a handover, I guess. And I'm not sure who's going to run that meeting. I will be there, but that's sort of the transition meeting, so that things will go as smoothly as the Holy Spirit will help them go. And that's what we have to be relying on. And one of the challenges and opportunities for spiritual growth for me has been that I'm challenged every day in prayer to accept the fact that I don't know what the heck is going to happen. I don't know what new job I'm going to have. I don't know, maybe I'll be one of those early birds launched into another part of the country, who knows? But we just don't know. And yet that doesn't mean we just sit back and wait for it to happen. We have to be involved and so on. So anyway, I'm done with my presentation. I hope that covers the kind of things you were interested in. Good. Okay. And if I miss something, we're going to have some questions and I'll try to answer them. And if you really think I should have addressed this, you tell me. Okay, so
So again, and I can talk because microphone's right here. But if you want to ask a question and you're not close to this microphone, please use one of these. So whoever wants to, let's see if anybody on Zoom wants to ask a question first. So
don't
anyone
forget to
on
unmute
Zoom
yourself.
want to ask a question, unmute yourself and ask away.
I'll ask a question.
Okay.
So Father Bill, you mentioned that there's a friar in Wisconsin that is kind of coordinating the secular Franciscan work. Are you at liberty to say who that is?
I don't think it's any big secret. It's Father Jerome Olbert,
Oh, okay.
but he may not be able to, do any pre-releases about their work until it's been gone through whatever channels are.
Right. So he is, on the NAFRA, or, he's in the leadership with CNSA, and the current president of, the CNSA for the secular Franciscans. So that would make sense that, he would be a logical choice.
The person that was talking is Joe Edwards, and he is the regional minister for this area of the United States for the secular Franciscans, Holy Trinity region.
By the way, Joe, you have some mail in the mailbox.
Well, awesome. Thanks, Father Bill.
One of my jobs these days is to sort the mail.
Oh, no, I'm vice minister for the region, so I could pick it up for you. I just want to add one thing too. I know I shared this with you when I initially, our fraternity, St. Michael's, a number of months ago, committed to praying together regularly for all 6 provinces as they made this journey. And I know a few of the other fraternities have begun doing that as well. And then there's a larger group that we refer to as Franciscan Connect. That's people throughout the United States that we meet every Wednesday by Zoom. And that's another thing that they're doing too, is always praying for the friars.
That is so great. Thank you.
Do you want some water?
Father Bill, a number of us here are not in a fraternity. We're here because we belong to a Franciscan parish.
Oh,
And in Cincinnati, we're trying to become one parish already with St. Francis Sarah. So
the family of parishes.
yeah, right. It doesn't have its name yet.
Yes.
But, you didn't mention anything about the Franciscan parishes.
I don't know what I can mention because their energy right now is taken up through the diocesan work of the Beacons of Light. We hope that we can continue to provide pastors for our parishes, and again, there will be over the years ahead, opportunities for men from other parts of the country to serve in parishes that we have staffed all of their lives. So it's just one of the a good example of the kind of larger thinking that parish ministry, like high school ministry, or like any of the other ministries, will in some ways have a larger pool to draw from, but have to be realistic that it's also a pool of aging men too, until we can get our vocation act together and really attract the men who are being called.
On the box, yes, and don't have the box near the microphone. Crank it up. Not yet.
No.
Crank it up.
Microphone has to be very close to the mouth.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
First of all, thank you for your sharing. It was really great to get a much more personal understanding of what all the friars are going through. in this transition. Many of us have long been associated with the friars of St. John of Baptist Province. And we on the outside are going through the same kinds of transitions and wondering what our future would be also. I'm thinking of St. Anthony Messenger magazine, Franciscan published. What are any of the other provinces have anything like that? So they will likely, at least going forward, stay in much the same manner that they are right now. A fair assumption.
They're part of a family of ministries, which we call our sponsored ministries. And we just, very timely, we just had our annual meeting this week. So Monday of this week, the board of Franciscan Media came to give us a state of their ministry and so on. And one of the things that all our ministries are struggling with are sustainability. You know, the subscribers for St. Anthony Messenger has just gone, like any printed magazine, it's really declined drastically. And they are working really hard to reach that level of sustainability. And you're probably aware that much of what they offer is now available on their website. And there's a real treasure trove of spirituality, Franciscanism that seems to be the way people want to read things nowadays instead of printing. But they'll be still publishing books, and it'll be very important that they can. Here's the thing that will happen with them, with Roger Bacon, and all these that they have a home with our province, and we love them, and we've grown up with them. We've known their ups and downs, and all the men and women who have served there, but they are going to be in a larger group who don't know them personally, like we do, and they will be kind of forced to make their own case to continue to be functioning within the Franciscan OFM family. And a big part of it will be, well, they will have to be self-sufficient financially and have good planning for the future and such. But we had this conversation with all the ministries. And if someone, Tom Deemer, could say the same thing about Roger Bacon High School. And who else is from Roger Bacon here? Raise your hand. Or OLA, yeah. Okay, good. So, okay, we have another question. Are you good?
In addition to that, one more quick question.
Yeah.
All my adult life, when I donated to the Franciscans, I donated to John Baptist Province. All of a sudden, that is different. I noticed that I've been getting more mail from other provinces in the last year or so.
Oh, okay.
Will there be what will be how will that change?
Yeah,
What's
good question. And again, that's something I'm up to my neck in. So there is I'm chief of staff as well as other things I do. So I work with Colleen Bouchard, who is our director for fireworks, who you probably get numerous emails, etc. from. We are moving to join the a US six province development program. And this past spring, they did a trial 3-province appeal. I don't know if it came out as this is a something that 3 provinces have joined together, but they're gradually going to merge their fundraising operations. It'll be in New York. And we want it to be as seamless as possible. Father John Bach, I just proofread his farewell letter. So in his late 80s, he's finally leaving his role in the email messages and printed messages that he did. But so it's gradual, it's going forward gradually, like our vocation effort, like our communication effort. So we have our own communicator. There's been one hired to manage the communication for the whole country. And individuals are either being brought on board in some way or form, or others are reaching a natural retirement decision. So I'm working hard with all of that. So, okay, over here.
Thank you for coming personally and sharing this information with us. It's very affirming. So I've heard that Atlanta is the new center for all the provinces. Can you talk about how come Atlanta was chosen?
Well, I can tell you that they consider many cities. I think there are about 50 cities. Is that right, John? And we had hired a consulting group to help us with decisions like that. And so they compiled a very exhaustive list of qualifications. And it came down to 3 cities, I think, and it eventually came to Atlanta. One of the reasons is the need for reliable transportation. Now, when you talk about the Atlanta airport, reliable transportation, that might be a little contradictory, but generally they get a lot of flights in and out on time. And the new headquarters is only a 10-minute drive from the airport. Also, Catholicism is building in the South. That as you look at the growth in dioceses or the diminishment in dioceses, you will see more positive growth in the southern states. Now, I think San Antonio was one of the choices.
And the third one, San Antonio.
And Chicago, wasn't it? Chicago? I thought it was Chicago. Yeah, or Denver. Denver was kind of on the list because there's. Yeah, they had 2 airports actually. Yeah, and terrible traffic.
Yeah.
I lived in Chicago for 6 years on the southeast side. The first month we were there, we had 2 cars stolen.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, so that was some of my early adventures in being a friar. Okay, sure. But it was a very painstaking process. And it wasn't put up for vote to the friars. And by the way, they have a conventual Franciscan archbishop. Now that could change next year.
Oh, there's a question.
Oh, okay.
Julie? You have a question, Julie?
Hi there. I have a question that I put on the chat, and it has to do with the secular Franciscan reorganization, or however it's going to be called. I started my journey at the mission in Santa Barbara about over 10 years ago, and I'm just wondering how that's going to be restructured or organized, or all the fraternities going to be working together, or what is it, a plan for that?
Well, I think your fraternities will probably follow the same pattern as ours, that in the immediate years, there may not be much change. But as the organization develops, you already have a national organization, but it may have more focus because the friars whom you collaborate with and live the vocation with, they have their own unification. So it's hard to tell. I'm not sure if I can really accurately predict, just how long it's going to take or how soon you'll begin to see a difference in your secular Franciscan life.
Well, when it comes to the seculars, in the national, we also deal with all of it. It's not just the
Okay, the Capuchins and the conventuals. Which is an interesting future, I mean, there's some who think that there should be a larger interobediential, if they call it, CAP, conventional OFM and TOR. There should be a union of them, but that's so far away. In other countries, they love their distinctiveness. You know, they don't have that urge to find what is in common. It seems to me. As well, much. Anyway, questions? Anyone else?
I have a question, might not need the mic, but, to the seventh, province that you said opted out, are they
Yeah.
okay?
They are fine. They are what we call the Italian province.
Oh,
And they call them that because culturally, they have many ties with Italy. They send their men to Italy for training. I think many of them speak Italian, even if they're not Italian. And they have they just didn't feel compelled to be part of that. I think it is I talked about provincial cultures. We had to put a big C before that. They have a culture with a capital C. And, but they also have their leadership current leadership was not really in favor of it. Their prior leadership were attending meetings and talking about being part of it. But when the leadership changed, that initial momentum stopped. Immaculate Conception province. It's one of the New York provinces. There are two of them. And again, I might get myself in trouble for speculating on reasons for this, so we'll keep it under the phone of silence. Phone of silence.
well,
Okay.
I think in the interest of time, we're gonna say thank you, and I will. Recording of our YouTube channel, so I'm gonna
Maybe you
stop
check
the
that last
recording. and Figure it out. Anyway, People keep talking or whatever. My life trying to figure out how to do it. Oh, yeah. Whoops.
We're looking at the chat contributions from the Zoom participants.
Okay, that was.
Confirmation of that comment about the other census groups.